Hello, I'm Kunal Shah and I'm the creator of Project Duos. So, as you can see here, these two robots are legally considered one robot. And that's because they are connected with this wire. And the cortex is on this side. This guy does not have a cortex. Therefore, by Vex, it is considered one robot because it has a total of 8 motors. 4 motors here, 4 motors here. So let's talk about the motor distribution first. So on this robot, you have 2 motor intake, and these 2 motors do what I call double ratchet. So these 2 double ratchet to the back tilter. And the way double ratcheting works is if the motor spins in one direction, it activates one mechanism. If it spins another direction, it activates a different mechanism. So in this motor's case, if this motor spins clockwise, it intakes. If it spins counterclockwise, then it runs the tilter. So yes, this does mean that this robot is incapable of outtaking cubes, but one, you should never need to do that anyways, because I designed the tilter so that it pushes the cubes completely out of the robot's range. The other thing is that originally the intent of this was to allow us to outtake. What the original design would have done is it would have done 2 motor intake, 1 motor outtake, and 1 motor tilter instead of the 2 motor tilter. But because of time constraints and me rushing to meet the deadline of Dunsmuir, I rushed this robot into the state it is in now. After Dunsmuir, we did not change anything on this robot, and this was like 3 months before when World was supposed to happen, which clearly didn't happen for COVID reasons. But it's still a really nice concept, or at least a proof of concept, that something like this can be done, and I feel like this is the best proof of concept that exists on a tether robot out there right now. My opinion. I think Team Aura did something like this, but I don't remember because Starstruck was 5 years ago, 4 or 5 years ago now. So I can't really remember what they did, and that was on V4. So I'd say that isn't even relevant at this point. So this is the most relevant V5 split. What is it called? Tetherbot proof of concept that exists right now, because frankly, it intakes at the same speed as normal competition bots, because in this stage, in earlier stages, you can see that I was putting the 2 motors I had for this robot on the under the tilter. But this proved ineffective because the main thing that we need to speed up in this year's competition was the cubes, and with such a long gear train, we had so many inefficiencies across that gear train that it just made intaking cubes super duper slow and not effective. In that older prototype, I was only able to intake 6 cubes max, and then after that, we wouldn't stall out, but we'd have jamming issues, and that just was not acceptable. So in this version, I put the motors in the same place you would put the motors in a normal robot, and the only thing it has to fight against is a very light ratchet. This is the most, I'd say that the most resilient, I guess, the most useful ratchet that exists at the moment, because it has such a low friction and it's so compact, and it can take a lot of force. I'll show you close-ups of the ratchet on screen right now. But this ratchet truly is extremely strong and extremely compact, and that's why I'd like to say that this is one of the better ratchets that exist out there in Vex right now because of how strong it is. And in fact, on 2 of these ratchets, these 2 ratchets, I only did use a collar on one side, and on these 2 ratchets I used a collar on both sides. But even with just 1 collar on each side, it is way more than strong enough to prevent, skipping or just failure in general. As for, I guess at this point I've already talked about double ratchets enough. If you want a better explanation on how it works, just I don't know, ask me in the comments or on Discord. You can probably find me in Veto. That's Vex Teams of the World Discord. You can probably find me on there. I believe on Veto I'm labeled as 7916A, which was my junior year team. So as for the tilter, yes, I used steel on my tilter here. It was for two reasons. One, I was running out of aluminum. Two, this part would bend, and I couldn't use the wider tray designs that would be built out of aluminum. And if you said you can get this to work out of aluminum, you were probably getting it to work out of just letting it bend over time. Let's be real. Because after like 2 months of running an aluminum tray for the bottom stage, it would start bending, and that was just unacceptable for me. So I was just like, I have some extra, or my friend had some extra steel that he didn't want to use. And I was just like, yo, hit me up. And I just replaced the bottom stage with steel, and it's fine. I don't see any issues with it. Definitely second stage and upwards, do not use steel. But for the first stage, it's honestly fine. As for the tilter mechanism, this is quite the unique tilter mechanism because I only have one direction to work with, because I use one direction to intake and one direction to run the tilter. So what I had to do is I made a slip gear tilter. So what this means is, well, my tilter drops down really fast, which honestly I see as a pro more than a con, because I can just pad the bottom out a little bit and it's fine. There's really no reason why your tilter shouldn't be able to handle dropping fast. If your tilter can, if your tray can handle holding so many cubes, I'm sure your tilter can handle dropping really fast, because really the thing that's dropping fast is the tray. And if your tray can survive holding so many cubes, I know shock impact is different from like the long-term strain of cubes, but it should still be able to handle it, as long as your tray isn't like crazy heavy for whatever reason. And another unique thing about this tilter is I use bevel gears to transfer the power. And yes, I realize so many people say bevel gears are terrible, they don't work, they're garbage. I don't think so. They work fine for me. You just gotta remember not to cantilever bevel gears. And if you don't know what cantilever is, it just means that something is supported on both sides. And if you don't cantilever bevel gears, then it'll be fine. The bevel gears don't crack or break or anything as long as you don't cantilever them. The reason they crack and break is because when you put a lot of force into it, the bevel gear starts to slant because it's cantilever. That's what it's gonna do. And then that slant puts all the pressure on like the back part of the bevel gear. And because it's putting all of the pressure into one tiny point of the bevel gear instead of distributed across the entire tooth of the bevel gear, it cracks, because that's what happens when you put too much force into one tiny spot. So as long as you make sure that those bevel gears are staying straight, and I'll show a little like picture of what the bevel gearboxes look like without it being in this cluster. As long as you do that design, I can guarantee you that the bevel gears will take 1 motor's worth of torque and it will not fail. 2 motors worth of torque, it might fail if you're really straining the bevel gears, but 1 motor worth of torque is perfectly fine. 0 issues with it. If you want to go above 2 motors worth of torque, I suggest looking at, I believe, 1724, something along those lines. They have a reveal where they used crown gears, and I don't know if they can take up 3 or 4 motors worth of torque, but it's more likely that crown gear that they made using standoffs and the holes on a gear, it's more likely that that'll hold up to 4 motors worth of torque versus bevel gears, because bevel gears are tiny. And that's honestly the main reason I chose to use bevel gears, is because they're tiny and they actually fit in these tiny places. I don't have a lot of space to work with here. Like literally the wheel is like right up against my tilter gearbox. Like I have very little space to work with. Everything about this design was, I have to make things more compact. And that's why I made this double ratchet so compact. This double ratchet can fit onto a size 3 gear because of, well, how compact it is. And frankly, from all of that, or for what it's worth, this was a really great proof of concept as to how great double ratchets are. And yes, I know all of like the traditional people will be like differentials are better and ratchets are inefficient, but honestly, the long gear trains required for differentials often outweigh the benefit from the differential versus going double ratchet. Double ratchet, my opinion, is definitely the way to go. Just out of experience, I've done differentials, many types of differentials over the past 3 years, and in the zone, I did two different differentials, like two completely different differentials, not even like remotely similar. In Turning Point, I did three different types of differentials, not at all similar. All of them were completely different. And in Tower Takeover, I did two different differentials. I have experience with differentials. I'm telling you, most of the time, if you build a good double ratchet and put it up against a good differential, the good double ratchet will be more efficient. Now, of course, it's always situational. Which one will be better? And I'm not discrediting differentials. I'm just saying double ratchets tend to be more versatile and not versatile. Double ratchets tend to fit my use case more often than differentials do, just because of how complex the gear trains have to get for differentials. And honestly, the R&D time it takes to fit a differential to your robot takes way longer than it takes to get a double ratchet to fit your robot, especially because you just need to make a set of ratchet or these like compact ratchets, and you can just reuse them over and over again, and it'll have not that bad of a side effect really. And these double ratchets, I'd say that they're easy to build. I know it'll be difficult for some. One of my friends, it took him about, I'd like to say a week, maybe 5-ish days to figure out how to build one of these double ratchets efficient. But like once you build these ratchets are really great. It takes like almost no friction. People have more friction in their gear trains than this ratchet has. So I'd say that it's a well-built ratchet, and it also takes a ton of force. Like seriously, this ratchet takes a ton of force. I'll show a zoomed in video of that ratchet on screen. But I think that's enough to. Oh wait, one last thing. Wire loom. When building a split bot or a tether bot or whatever you want to call it, you're gonna need a kind of some kind of long wire going between the robots. And I just want to say, use wire loom for the first bit. Don't use it for the entire length. As you can see here, the wire loom ends and the wire comes out. The reason I did this is because when backing up, you would often back up onto the wire. But as you can see here, the wire loom prevents me from backing up over my wire. And honestly, I'm thinking that I should just cut off the wire loom around here. But just one big thing to note is wire loom is not nearly as good when you have anti-tips. Anti-tips really make wire loom suck a lot. So one thing you can do to remedy this is, well, just in general, what you want to do with wire loom is you want wire loom to be supported up till the very farthest back thing on your robot that is on the same height as the wire loom. So this tray, you don't need to prevent the wire loom from getting stuck in the tray. But it will sometimes get stuck in the anti-tips. Oh, anti-tips actually. That is another unique thing about this robot. I cut Omni wheels, or I think 3.25 inch Omni wheels in half, and they work fantastic. They're not much weaker. They did fine as anti-tips. So I got two of these wheels. I cut them in half. The two weaker sides I used for tracker wheels on our main bot. Don't worry, I don't have corona. And the two stronger sides got used as anti-tips. I've just been talking a lot. I don't normally talk this much, so my throat's starting to get a little bit sore. So I think I should wrap up this robot fairly soon, but just to note, the way you make wheels like this and you make them as nicely as I did, you either need, I forget what they're called, it's like a bandsaw, but more precise. I don't know what they're called. You know what I'm talking about if you have one of these, and if you don't have one of these, well, then it doesn't matter. What I did though is I got a hacksaw. I found the thinnest hacksaw blade I had. I put the hacksaw, tightened it in a vise. I got a drill. I got a high strength axle. I put high strength spacers on the high strength axle. Then I put the high strength spacers part of the axle into my drill chuck, tightened down my drill chuck, and then I just spun up the drill. Oh, I also collared the wheel to prevent it from moving. And then I just spun up the drill and I lowered it onto the hacksaw blade and I cut the wheel in half like that. It honestly, okay. I'm relatively good at machining things by hand. So your mileage will vary, but I found it like medium to hard difficulty, but you definitely need patience. That's for sure. You definitely need patience. Like for example, building this ratchet, that's like super easy relative to cutting this wheel. Doing the wheel, that was about medium difficulty. The hardest part about building this ratchet is that you have to take a normal collar and you have to drill another like set screw hole into the collar. That's about the toughest part about building this ratchet. This wheel is medium difficulty. Hard difficulty, I don't know what would be hard difficulty. That would lean more in, or outside of Vex, or what you can do in Vex. So really not that bad, or that it's just not that bad stuff. Also, just another note about the wire loom. I just put zip ties every time I saw the V5 logo on one of the wires. So I just picked a wire and I followed it along the entire wire loom, and every time I saw a V5 logo on the wire loom, I just zip tied it. This is a full, I don't know what the Vex packs. Actually, I have one right there. Let me check. This is a full 8 meters worth of wire. And then on this robot, what I did, it's probably hard to see from this distance, but for the wires that I wanted to be longer, I just spliced them together with another V5 wire and just finished the length it needed to be. So, enough about this robot. If you have questions about this robot, please feel free to leave a comment asking questions. That's about it for this robot. Except actually there's this one trick that everyone should know about. So you see here, I have a sprocket here and I have a sprocket here. But I want them to spin opposite directions from each other. So what I did is I ran the chain around this sprocket normally, and on this sprocket I ran it along the outside. This reverses the direction. And yes, I realize that the chain is rubbing here, but this really provides or causes almost zero friction because there's a kind of trick to know, which is if this sprocket is turning this way, which it is always turning this way because I know it's a double ratchet, it can only spin in one direction. So if this sprocket is spinning in this direction, so like this, then it is tensioning this part of the chain up to the sprocket. So this outer chain is completely detensioned. It does nothing. So this means I can leave this chain, or this chain is like fairly loose. So this adds almost no friction to this chain right here. Because there's like almost no friction, I can leave it like this, but typically don't leave it like this unless you know what you're doing in terms of knowing that this outside band of chain is detensioned. So that's the last of this bot. I'm going to put this to the side now. So now let's talk about this bot just a little bit. There's not anything too interesting about this bot. Krishna, my team captain actually, of in 5327E, he basically just built this robot in 12 hours because we were trying to meet that Dunsmuir deadline. He built this robot in 12 hours, and it's good build quality, and that's about all there is to say about it. It's built well. The only thing we didn't get to in time is there's supposed to be a wall here and a wall here like normal robots like this, and this was supposed to be powered by 600 RPM worm gear. That way, like, we can tighten down the claw on cubes and then it won't like we won't have to keep the motor on brake hold, or on set motor stopping to brake or set motor stopping to hold, which will just tire out the motor way earlier than it needs to be tired out. So a worm gear motor would have been nice here, but I accidentally shattered both of my worm gear gearboxes. Though I'll show what they looked like, because these were also... So this is what the worm gear gearbox looked like. So you would have these two inserts here, these two inserts. This C channel is just some random piece of scrap that I found. But this is, you only need this 5-hole C channel down here, and it's good enough. So you can see that's where I destroyed the gear. I turned the spiral, like this worm gear, way too hard on the normal gear, and I put a metal insert here, and I tightened a collar down on it or something. So I thought that this would twist the axle, but I actually just destroyed the plastic part of it, which honestly I should have guessed, but oops, whatever. I was bored and I wanted to destroy it, and, well, not destroy it, but I wanted to see how far I could push it without it breaking. So this is another nice little gearbox that I made. Feel free to copy it, I guess. I don't know. Worm gears, though, I do not recommend them in most cases. Only use worm gears where you're trying to prevent back driving it, if that makes sense to you. As for this robot, it's good design. It was my fault that it ended up having to be a 15-hole wide base, because this was originally planned to be 17 holes wide. It ended up being 22 holes wide when I added the sprockets, because I'm dumb, and I thought I could do it with the size sprocket right below this. And then I ran out of that size sprocket, and I didn't bother changing it back to the smaller size sprocket after this because I didn't want to redo the sizing. Also, this actually intakes much better than it would right now, because flaps are just not good at speed, and yes, they help with diagonal cubes, but I wanted the speed part of it, and I never fixed the tensioning for... There's like a rod here, or a C channel here, that allows me to tension this closer and farther apart using a standoff. And I never fixed the tensioning when I added flaps. If you didn't know, you have to add, like, I don't know, 1/4 of spacing when you change from no flaps to flaps. And I didn't do that, so it definitely didn't perform optimally in the video, but it still performed good enough so I could get footage, so whatever. As for this robot, I keep going back to this robot. I need to stop doing that, though. This robot, it's just built well. Claw needed to be finished, but what I did in the reveal is I just stuck the cubes together because I didn't want to spend any extra time or money / metal or parts on this robot, because I would have had to custom make something for this, and I did not want to do that at that point. So this robot is in the state that it's in right now is the state that I showed in the reveal, and it's more, these robots are more of a proof of concept. I want to get that clear. Tower Takeover, the season is over. It was not worth spending more time developing these robots for that reveal. So I put them out as a reveal, as a proof of concept, though, more than anything else. That's why I called it Project Duos, not Tower Takeover Fight Through 270E reveal. I called it Project Duos because it is a project, not a competition bot, I guess. This is more of a skills bot than anything else, because the whole point of this robot was to absolutely crush the skill score, because honestly, trying to go for the world champion spot is kind of not realistic, just because there's so many random events that can occur. So I bet some of you are questioning what is up with the theoretical skill score, the theoretical, not skill score, but I showed a frame or a clip of a completed skills field, and I wrote down a theoretical skill score. So the theoretical skill score is just us doing small snippets of the time trial with the robots and adding all those times up together and seeing how many points we can get in that amount of time. We never got the skills score in one run, and we never actually ran a skills run with these robots at all. We just ran small snippets and just added the time together because I am not the main driver. I'm the only one who has access to these robots in Corona time. So it really was not something we can do. We just never had the chance to actually do a skills run with these robots. I'm not the main driver. The main driver is, well, we can't coordinate something like that because our club is told we are not allowed to meet at all under Corona. And if we had enough people to do skills runs, that would be considered a club meeting. Duos was a success in my eyes. I really enjoyed building these two robots. I learned a lot from the whole double ratchet versus differential experiments I was doing between the two robots. I tried a lot of different configurations for this robots. I tried double ratchets with bevel gears, double ratchets with worm gears, double ratchets with what is it called? Double ratchets to a differential, sort of. That one was weird. I tried differential to bevel gear tilter. I tried differential 4-bar tilter to these two things. I forget what these are called. Intakes? Sure, intakes. Someone called them rollers or something. I don't know. I tried a lot of different things. If you want to ask me if I tried a particular thing, the answer is probably yes. I spent a lot of time on these robots and a lot of different iterations of them. So if you want to ask me if I tried something in particular, go ahead and leave a comment. I'll probably answer most questions in the comment section. If you're going to give me hate about the duos reveal being kind of scammy and misleading, I'm probably just going to ignore your comment, maybe dislike the comment, I don't know, because I'm saying it. Duos reveal is not a reveal in a competitive sense. Duos reveal is to be a proof of concept. And I know I'm saying reveal out loud, but it's a proof of concept. The season is over, so I don't really feel badly posting a potentially misleading reveal. Because one, I had to seriously take way too many tries to get those clips right, because I am not a good driver of these two robots. And actually, this robot runs on arcade drive, and this robot runs on tank drive, so I was constantly confusing myself on how to drive. So really, if just know the season's over, so just chill. It's a proof of concept. Learn from it. Don't hate on it. It is just me trying to push Vex Robotics to all that it can be. And if someone at Vex is listening, can we please use 2 Cortexes on a robot as long as it still hits the motor limit? Because this tether, it's really not ideal. And it's frankly going to clog up other robots and just make everyone's life miserable. It doesn't make our lives miserable nearly as much as it makes the other team's lives miserable. So really, why don't we just allow 2 Cortexes on a robot, or at least make like a wireless expansion buddy or whatever you want to call it, where it's like a Cortex, but it's a companion to the Cortex. I know I saw something kind of close to that in the post 2020 Tower Takeover, or the post Tower Takeover videos that Vex posted, but I don't think that's quite what we're looking for in order to make split bots. But honestly, the easiest thing is just let us use 2 Cortexes. There really shouldn't be a problem with it. Yeah, I think that's about all I have to say to explain Project Duos. If you have any more questions, feel free to leave a comment. I'm leaving this video unlisted and only posting the link to this video under the main duos reveal, just because I don't want to leave a super long rant of a video on my main channel's like homepage area. But otherwise, there's nothing special to note other than that. These 2 robots are now complete. I am going to be posting more on my YouTube channel because Corona's giving me a lot of free time and I've been doing a lot of cool projects. I'm going to try to get an e-bike video out, a laptop battery pack video out, I'm doing one last robot for a change up. It's also going to be using a double ratchet system. Um, I'm going to be doing another change up robot, and it's going to be another very unique robot. I think that it'll be able to get close to matching the like 210Y robots in 4Motors. And that's not to shame 210Y or anything. They built a robot like as soon as the season came out, but I'm just trying to like compare it to something that already exists. 210Y, they've clearly made a good robot for it being so early in the season. Only last thing I want to note is I'm just curious why a lot of people are using Omni wheels, because it feels like the balls would get jammed on the Omni wheels while falling down more than it would actually pass through it nicely, and flaps seem to do just as good of a job at that versus using Mecanum wheels. If you want to really use wheels to like center balls or like pull them down, maybe I want to see some people try to use Mecanum wheels, because I think that would help more with pulling the ball downwards because of the way Mecanum wheels are shaped. You just have to orient them in the right way. So that's about it. Leave a comment if you have any questions, and bye.